Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Are Finally Podcast, Episode 1. I'm Rasen,
I'm Zach.
and this is a fun new podcast that I decided I'd go ahead and create. Now, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Rasen. Hi. I just said my name a minute ago, but yeah, I one time had a Megami Tensei podcast called The Cathedral of Shadows that went on for a good 2 years or so. And then got kind of bored of the subject material, or at least talking about the subject material. So I kind of took a break from the podcasting thing, and I thought I'd go back into the game after my long 9 year coma. Um, so yeah, this is a fun little podcast I want to create just so that me, my friends, and God knows who's gonna come on here, just to talk about fun nerd things. So that's always a good time. Now, speaking of fun nerd things, Zach.
Yes.
I heard you're a fun nerd thing. No, I
Oh, thanks.
I heard I heard I heard you did a fun nerd thing recently that you want to talk about. What'd you do?
I did. I went to New York Comic Con for a day.
That's fun. Is this your first time?
Um, Pretty much. I did go briefly one year for like 2 hours, but I had no money. So this is the first time I kind of went as like a all day event sort of thing. So
Yeah,
it was pretty good.
I always feel weird talking about cons because I live in the middle of bumfuck nowhere and like there's no real cons around my area. So I don't know. Like I've always wanted to go and like do that, but like there's nothing around here.
I'm a bit luckier in that respect because I live near New York City, and then there's also a couple like local anime conventions by my area. So I've been to a few, but this is definitely the biggest and most overall encompassing of subject matter that I've been to.
Yeah. Man, I need to make it out to like Chicago one of these days, or even I know they have like a anime thing in Milwaukee, but I've heard bad things. So
Uh,
yeah. No, like I don't know. Like did you do anything fun, I guess, while you were there?
well, the first thing that I did as soon as the doors opened was I ran to the Dark Souls 3 booth and I played some Dark Souls 3.
That's a good idea. So was Dark Souls 3 the Shin Megami Tensei 4 of Demon Souls or
Yes.
okay, that's all that we needed to know. Moving on, no. No, really, how's Dark Souls 3 though? Like
It's really good. I'm sure anyone who's interested has probably heard all this before, but it definitely does feel like the culmination of everything good the series has had so far, definitely leaning heavier towards Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne.
that's good news. So I guess you said it's leaning more towards Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne. Would you say, like, if there is a sliding scale of, like, combat feel, would you say it feels more like a Bloodborne type game or more like Dark Souls 1? Or is it just, like, a real nice in between?
It definitely leans heavier towards Bloodborne in terms of how fast-paced the action is and like the fast rolling and everything. It also looks a lot like Bloodborne, but I think where the Dark Souls one stuff comes into play is that it's like Bloodborne's action with the depth and defensive options of Dark Souls.
Which is good, because I don't have any current gen consoles because I'm broke as fuck. But like, I've watched a playthrough of Bloodborne, and like I've had some hands on with it. And from what I understand, Magic in Bloodborne was pretty garbage.
Yeah, pretty much until you got to the end, you didn't even have any good magic spells, and your arcane stat wasn't high enough to do it, so there was no point to even playing arcane in that game.
Yeah, and I feel like I feel like a dipshit whenever I talk about Souls games because I've only really spent a lot of time with one. I've touched two and like Demon Souls a little bit, but not really. But it feels like From Software, whenever they design their combat systems, like it feels like they design certain elements really well, and like I mean everyone knows about how well designed the Souls games are and all that. But when it comes to like I guess Magic, a lot of times has this problem. Like I think about Dark Souls 1, there are certain areas that are just a joke if you're a pyromancer, and I don't know. Like I hope if Dark Souls 3 kind of does what it sets out to do, and you can just kind of play it however, and they well tune all of those elements, it seems like it could be a fun time.
Definitely. I mean, from what I played, it seems like they're really taking a effort to take the best of all the games. Like they have the magic bar from Demon Souls even. So there's definitely listening to fan feedback. So hopefully they make the best experience they can with it.
That's yeah. Like I know too. They said this is like they want to. This is like the last game they want to do before they kind of change up the formula a bit. I think they've said so. I hope that it turns out to be the best one of this type, which might be hard to do because everyone fucking loves Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne and all that. But like if they can finally like nail it down perfectly one last time and then move on to different things, like that'd be cool.
I hope so. I mean, it feels really fun to play. The combat seems like it's probably the best they've had yet. So, and Miyazaki is directing it. So, I even in the demo, I saw some of the examples of his level design coming into play. So, I think we're in for a good one.
Yeah, definitely. No, but yeah, God, I feel so weird talking about Souls 2 because like I said, I've spent a lot of time on Dark Souls 1. I actually I got that game like around the time it came out and like I just kind of picked at it every now and again. And like I had a weird thing with Dark Souls 1 where I would refuse to play that game unless I had like a whole day I could just binge on it because like I didn't ever want to play it in spurts. I wanted to just enjoy every moment of it. So it took me forever to beat that game. But man, I love that game. But I own Dark Souls 2 and I own Demon Souls, but I've never really spent too much time with them. I probably should one of these days. I feel weird with Dark Souls 2 because Scholar of the First Sin is out, and like I've heard vanilla is a little like I've heard you should play vanilla before you play Scholar of the First Sin, but at the same time, I've heard Scholar of the First Sin is a lot better. So like I feel kind of weird playing one or the other, I guess now.
Well, I actually did when with my Dark Souls 2 experience, I actually played Skull with the First Sin. I haven't played the vanilla version. So I think you could probably go into just Skull with the First Sin.
It felt fine, didn't feel weird at all, or
I mean, there's a few moments early on where it kind of feels like you're maybe playing like a hard mode version of it, knowing what it is. But as long as you
yeah,
play Dark Souls 1, you should be fine.
yeah, all right. Yeah, like I don't know. I'm looking forward to Dark Souls 3 and I should probably play Demon Souls and Dark Souls 2 and all that because like the rate I'm going, I'm not going to be able to play that game for probably a year or two, but well, I guess no one is cuz actually when is that coming out? It's coming out next year sometime, right?
Dark Souls 3,
Yeah.
early next year actually.
Oh, really? I didn't.
Yeah, it's just a couple months away.
Oh, yeah, that's right actually. I forgot about that. I for some reason I kept like I guess it's probably because it's like November's coming up and all the big AAA things are releasing. Whatever reason, I assumed it was fall next year, but no, you're right actually. Yeah, it's coming out in like early next year, so yeah, that should be fun. God, 2015 was so good for games and 2016 is looking even better. It's ridiculous.
I'm pretty excited for 2016.
It's looking pretty solid. No, but I don't know, you do anything else fun at New York Comic Con?
Not too much. I shopped around a bit. I bought a sword, so that was good.
You're not a true cool kid until you buy a Keyblade though.
Actually, I bought a sword from the Fate series, like Fate Stay Night and Fate Zero,
Yeah.
and they put it in like a cardboard box. So as I was walking away from the stall, there was a guy who was like, "Oh, is that the Keyblade?" And I just went, "Nope," and kept walking.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it was good.
Oh dear. Um, I remember. Speaking of New York, actually, there's that Nintendo store in there or whatever.
Yeah.
There was apparently when Kingdom Hearts 3D came out or whatever, they were like having people come to the store, and when you bought your copy of the game, they would like take your picture posing with a Keyblade and post it on Facebook. And I'm like, oh my God, that's
Oh.
oh dear. That's not gonna end well. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of awkward, cringy photos of Keyblade wielding cool kids at the Nintendo World Store, from what
There's
I
no way to
gathered.
do anything involving a Keyblade and not look awful.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, Kingdom Hearts. Are you excited for Kingdom Hearts Ground Zeroes or whatever the fuck they're calling?
Oh, what is it? 2.8 prologue, last chapter prologue.
Final chapter prologue.
Final chapter prologue. Yeah, I'm not buying that.
Yeah.
I'll buy Kingdom
I,
Hearts 3. I'm not buying that.
I'll buy. I'm gonna buy that if only because I have such a weird. I have weird thoughts on Kingdom Hearts as a series, but like, um, I think I will buy that if only because at least that's part of a collection that has Dream Drop Distance in it, and I never actually played that, so I'll
Uh,
probably pick that up years from now when it's cheap. But
you
no,
know what? Years from now, when it's cheap, I might too, but I'm definitely not getting it on release because it's just one game in that collection with a couple little extras.
yeah. And from what I've heard, Dream Drop Distance wasn't particularly great either. Like I've heard good things, but I've heard that it's not the best one. Um, no, but I don't know. I feel weird about Kingdom Hearts because like I enjoyed the first one back in the day. I enjoyed Chain of Memories a lot, which I know is like sacrilege to a lot of people, but um, I enjoyed Chain of Memories a lot, and then 2 came out, and like it plays fun, and I know that's a lot of people's favorite, but like, oh my god, that fucking story became an acid trip after that, and like it kind of killed part of my enjoyment because like it plays nice and like it's a fun action RPG, but like, ooh man, as soon as nobody's got introduced, that story completely went down the shitter. It's a
Oh,
mess now.
you don't like having 19 anthems running around?
Oh my god. You know, one time I made a joke on a episode of, last podcast I had, like I don't know. I don't know why Cathedral of Shadows is Voldemort now. Apparently, I can't fucking say the title. No, but
Podcast that must not be named.
exactly. We are finally podcast now. This is the new shit.
Yeah.
But no, like I once said, like, man, I hate how there's like 10 different Soras now, and this one dude commented, like, actually, they're all completely different characters, and I'm like, okay, but they're no, they're not though. Um, they're really not. I know there's like some Google Doc that has been going around where someone just took a bunch of pictures with arrows and it's like this person is mad at this person because blank, and they made like a children's storybook style timeline out of it,
That's how
which
you know you've got a good story on your hands.
I know, but something like that is required to understand it. Yeah. Um, no, but like, because I know a lot of Kingdom Hearts fans or whatever, it's like don't play it for the story because it's nothing. But like, I don't know, like, I feel weird because like I'm at a point with action RPGs where in most cases I would rather it be just a traditional RPG or an action game. I don't know. I feel really weird about it. Like, I would rather it just be one or the other. And, like, I think Kingdom Hearts actually, in terms of gameplay, is the one I have the least issue with because I feel like they incorporate both elements really well. But, like, a lot of times I'm like, I would rather just have one game or the other.
I can agree with that. I've always preferred turn-based.
Same.
Uh, but sometimes when I'm in the mood for an action RPG, I'll plug in something like Kingdom Hearts and just have some fun, but it's definitely not my preference.
Yeah.
And I mean, action games are action games. I love them when I'm in the mood for action.
Yeah, like, I do, I feel like too, part of that might just be because at least last generation, and we could still kind of, I think, feel it this generation. There was that big push towards more actiony or more involved RPG combat, and there's like turn-based became kind of a dirty word for a while there, and like I never have had a problem with turn-based games. I like turn-based games actually because it's like sometimes I just want to put the controller down, go downstairs, make some popcorn, do whatever. You know what I mean? Like I like the relaxed
Yeah.
nature of like that sort of gameplay in a story-based game. Um, like even I remember when Final Fantasy XII came out, and I love that game, but like I remember popping in Final Fantasy XII and thinking, why couldn't I just wait like I did in Final Fantasy X?
I remember popping in Final Fantasy 12 and being, why is this an offline version of Final Fantasy 11?
I know, right? Like, yeah, they pretty much became MMO style for that. I don't know, that was weird. Um, God, Final Fantasy XII is a strange game.
It's the game that I've always meant to go back to and give another chance because I really didn't get into it when it came out, and I've just always been like, I'll get around to giving it another chance eventually.
Yeah. Um, there's been talk of like an HD version. I really hope they do bring over like the Zodiac job system thing and an HD form for like PS4 or something. That'd be really neat.
Yeah, I would definitely get that.
Um, Speaking of big numbered games that are disappointing, you want to talk about the latest Metal Gear Solid? No, I actually wasn't disappointed with it, but a lot of people are. Um, no, but actually, you know what? I didn't mean to cut you off. Any other Comic Con stories you want to talk about, or was that pretty much it?
Oh no, I've got nothing left to say about that.
Okay.
We can move on.
Okay. Nothing really exciting happened for me this week. I haven't been doing much. I've been busy with school and volunteering and running around and doing things. I downloaded Crisis 2, which is a first-person shooter that was I guess Crisis was a big name for a while just because like that first game was like a big PC benchmark game or whatever. Um, yeah, Crisis 2 isn't very fun. Um, that series, I think, kind of died after the first one. Like, it's just a really traditional first-person shooter that I'm not really having a good time with. But, like, you ever have that thing where you, like, own a game and you feel like you feel obligated to just see it through to the end?
Oh yeah, I've definitely felt that.
That's kind of where I'm at with that game, where it's like I'm playing it and sometimes I'm having spurts of fun where I'm like, oh, I see what you did in this level. That's a good idea. But then like the other 90% of it is like, wow, this is Call of Duty, but you're a robot guy, and like I don't
Uh,
like that. I guess that was kind of that dark age back then where everything was a shooter that was in a corridor and everything had to be big set pieces and actiony and everything had to be the Modern Warfare killer and all that, and not fun times. I'm kind of glad we're out of that nowadays, thankfully.
we're out of it, but we're still kind of in it
Yeah, like
in some ways.
Battlefront seems to be Battlefield, but Star Wars.
It
So
is. Yeah, I played a bit of the Battlefront beta, and it's pretty much it's Battlefield, but with Admiral Akbar popping up every once in a while, going, "Your Empire's forces are still about." So, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and like that's not a bad thing, I guess. It's just
I mean, if you're into that style of game, it's absolutely going to be fun, but
yeah,
it's not like they could have done so much more with that
yeah.
franchise.
My problem with like modern day shooters is like they feel so creatively bankrupt. Like, you know what I mean? It's like
I
they try so hard to just do what the last one did, and it's like it's not fun. But I feel like AAA at least is starting to kind of. Well, I guess the sandbox games are the new shooter. I think a little bit. Um,
I would definitely agree with that. There's definitely a lot of series that feel they need to go into a big open world sandbox.
yeah, and I curious to see where that goes. I hope like the next 5 years or so isn't that, but like it very well could be. But and I don't know. I don't. I guess I probably shouldn't care that much because there's more to games than just AAA. But I mean, every once in a while you want to play a nice big budget game and enjoy it. So sometimes even trends and things you don't care about can affect the medium in different ways too. So who knows? Um, Dark Souls 4 open world, but um, no, but I guess speaking of open world games, we can finally go into what we were talking about. So yeah, recently a little game you might have heard of called Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain came out, and I think everyone and their mother has played it at this point. But like, if you still haven't, I guess we're not gonna go too hard into spoilers. I feel like we don't need to delve into spoilers, do we? Or
No, I can pretty much say everything I want to say without spoiling it.
yeah, I feel like I can too. So yeah, if you haven't played the game yet, don't worry. We're not gonna spoil that big boss dies or anything, and you know,
That Raiden is the ultimate patriot.
yeah, and pretty much every other plot twist that was revealed in this game. No, um, well, I guess starting things off as soon as like right before it came out and all that, and as soon as the game did come out, critical reception was near perfect for a lot of reviewers. Like a lot of tens, a lot of nines. People were really loving it. And then when it actually came out, I want to say like fan reception was a bit more mixed than that. A lot of people really disappointed by it. A lot of people loved it. A lot of people in between. I'm definitely. I honestly, it's like my probably my second favorite game to come out this year. But there are some huge glaring flaws that I do not fault people for not enjoying the game because of them, I guess. Uh, I mean, I guess one thing that people are talking about, and I guess it relates to what we're talking about, is the change to open world. How did you feel about that, actually?
Honestly, I'm super mixed on it because I enjoy open world games, but it's definitely not what I wanted out of Metal Gear Solid. They did it well. It's fun to play. It's fun to roam around the world and do little side stuff, but it wasn't my preferred option.
Yeah, I can see that. I I feel really weird on the open world because like there are things about it I really love in that uh I guess when you have a mission objective and you have that open world structure, you can tackle that mission in so many different ways, and I really think it encourages replayability and going into situations with a bunch of different styles and weapon loadouts and tactics and all that. And I really enjoy that style of gameplay. I love open world games that do stuff like that, and we don't have many, unfortunately. Like I can think of honestly, the only games I can think of that really do that, other than this, are like Far Cry 3 and 4, where they kind of encourage you to try stealthing through like enemy encampments and stuff like that, or like basically trying to use the world around you to go through different side tasks in that game, other than just going there and like killing everyone, like in like Assassin's Creed or other open world games. Um, no, but yeah, I like the open world for that. I don't know how I feel about the weird obsessive tick I have where every time I go into a building, I immediately want to know what boxes of resources I can collect so that my mother base can grow. And that's coming from a guy who like totally like my weakness in games is like base building. Like you can make the shittiest game ever probably, and if it's like, oh, I can build a base in it and get resources, then like I'll probably really like your game because like I'm a sucker for that sort of thing. But like sometimes I don't want to look around the map for fuel. Like
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that it it did what it was going for well. Like if you want that kind of game, you really there's no other option that is as good as this right now.
you're
So
gonna
if you're
spend
in the
over a
mood,
hundred hours if you want to go deep too. Like
yeah,
it's a
absolutely.
fucking massive game.
You're getting tons of content and you're getting huge open world, like more than one huge open world. And there's tons of stuff to do in it. There's different ways you can tackle the missions. It's a really good game in terms of it's a good open world game. It's just if you were going in hoping for like what you got out of Metal Gear Solid 1 or 3, that's not really here.
Definitely. And I mean, one thing I will give Metal Gear is that every single new installment does feel like a new installment. It feels like they change up the formula enough, and I feel like we've reached a point where maybe was a too big of a jump for a lot of people. Like, one thing I
Well,
will say about like the previous games is when you have a game that is not open world and more like a linear controlled experience, uh, when you're good at designing something, it's a lot easier to design something that's linear and has like maybe three or four different ways of going through an area than it is to like I guess what I'm trying to say is that the stealth in 5 is a lot different than how it played in the more traditional segments of like 1 through 4, I would say. And I think for a lot of people, I can see why they wouldn't like the change in pace.
I definitely agree, especially if you're someone that skipped some of the more recent entries, because the Phantom Pain definitely feels like a sort of like the ultimate culmination of what they started doing with like Portable Ops and Peace Walker and even Ground Zeroes. So if you skip those games and just went only for the numbered ones, it's definitely going to be a huge jarring change for
Yeah,
you.
and people definitely did. Like I know when Peace Walker came out, or well, I guess I can't say when it came out because I wasn't really too into Metal Gear then. But when or I guess at least looking at reception for Peace Walker, it seems like that one's a little mixed too. Like I actually liked Peace Walker a lot. I thought all the mission stuff was fun, and I loved the base building and all that. But I definitely can see that Peace Walker and from what I played of Portable Ops, those definitely feel like the seeds, and Phantom Pain is finally the the final product or the final attempt at that idea of like you're in charge of a mercenary group and you can extract guys with these dumb balloon things and like all of that finally, and I guess overall just the mission structure that they go for instead of it just being one continuous game that's divided up with boss fights and long cutscenes. Um, I can definitely see why people that skipped those games and went to Phantom Pain were like, okay, what the hell is going on here? Because it definitely changes how the game feels.
It's a very different game. I mean, even in comparison to Peace Walker, it's still it's got the same overall structure, but it's still a very different game. So
Yeah,
no matter where you're coming from, there's something different and new here, and how you feel about it depends on how you like the things it does.
yeah, and like I love the core game, like the stealth and the combat and all that. I love to death. I think this game is one of the best like playing games
Uh,
ever. Like
in terms of the stealth and the action, the series has never been this good.
I if I honestly at this point, like I'm at a point where it's like if your third person shooter does not control as well as like Phantom Pain does, like this needs to be the new standard because the control scheme is just so intuitive and it feels so responsive and every time you do something cool, it feels flawless. I don't know really how to describe it other than it just feels nice and responsive. Um it's definitely not the smoothest when you're going around like I'm trying to think about like all the times I was in Afghanistan and like you're walking around some of the more rocky terrains and it feels off. But I mean like when you're just sneaking around or trying to do something cool, it just feels so nice and so rewarding once you finally start to get into the more advanced tactics that you can pull off later in the game.
I mean, definitely. The highlights of the game for me was when you would get a mission or even a side up where you walk up to a base, you walk around the base, you scope it out, you make a plan, and then you go for it, and you see how your plan works in real time.
Yeah. And even going back to Crisis 1 was actually a game that had that going for it. Definitely not to the extent that this game does, but yeah, I really like when open world games kind of have that where there's like a base or some sort of obstacle, and because of it's an open world game, you can kind of just hang around the perimeter of whatever mission area you have, and then you can kind of scope things out, make a plan in your head, and then go for it and try doing it. And maybe it's gonna work, maybe it's gonna horribly fail in your face. But like, I love that pacing where you kind of just needs to take some time to think about things, think about what you're gonna do, and then you execute it, and then just the tension of seeing if that works or not. It's great. I think also too, like I said, it makes the game feel really replayable, and I really enjoy that. Like, we were just talking a little bit beforehand, but I went ahead and S ranked all of the main missions, none of the repeats, but I replayed all of the main missions until I got the S rank, and just going through them every single time. Like I kept trying new strategies and doing more things to increase my ranking, and like just that alone was fun to me. But I can definitely see too how like even the fact that like there's stuff unlocked behind S ranks could be a problem for people because like a lot of people will just like play Metal Gear Solid 1 or whatever, and then it's like, okay, that's it, and then they're done. They don't even want to replay stuff. So the fact that stuff is locked behind that, I could see being a problem for people.
I mean, I think it's a good idea to have stuff locked behind it because it rewards the people that want to do that. But at the
Yeah,
same time, there's no way I'm going to S rank all of those missions.
yeah, like definitely, like because I feel like too, this is kind of actually how I felt about Ground Zeroes, where I played through all of the stuff in Ground Zeroes, and like I didn't really feel the need to go through and S rank all those missions.
Oh,
Um, But with Phantom Pain, I don't know. There's just actually mostly I just did it because I wanted to unlock the Raiden outfit that you get for S ranking everything. But
I can
um,
respect that.
instead of the missions in Ground Zeroes that were just more side oppy type stuff where you would go in and do a few things and then the mission was over. In Phantom Pain, all of the stuff has like so much steps to it and the missions are so much more complex that I enjoyed replaying those more than I did the ones from Ground Zeroes. But yeah, I can definitely see too. I guess one thing that I always appreciated about Metal Gear is that they were very much designed to have. I guess they were designed around a working adult schedule in mind. They were definitely short, I can see why a lot of fans would be disappointed in that you probably need about 40 hours to go through this one at a minimum, I'd say.
Yeah, but I feel like the mission structure kind of balances that out to where it's definitely a game that you can play in short bursts.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'd say that actually is a good counterbalance. I think it's also weird too because with Portable Ops and Peace Walker, those were for the PSP originally, so you can kind of see where the mission structure would go for a more pick up and play style thing. And then in Phantom Pain is a big AAA console game, and it could probably be a little weird having that mission structure overlapping with it being a home release. But I think they pull it off well enough. I think they could have gone for maybe 30 less side ops.
Maybe 30 or 50 less side ops and maybe a few fewer let's just say repeating main ops.
Yeah, not a fan of that at all, to be honest. Yeah, like I think the problem with the side ops is that I'm not even like there's about this isn't even a spoiler, the game tells you that up front. There's 157 side ops in the game, which are just these little tasks that it'll be like, oh, go eliminate this unit of tanks, and you just go and blow up or Fulton all of them out, and then the mission's over and it's marked as completed or whatever. The problem is that there's so many of them and there's so little variety that it starts to feel a little samey after a while, and it's
It
not
gets a bit tedious.
it's not really until the late game where you start to unlock more that feel like there's more variety or like there's more thought put into it. Like it'll be like go rescue this prisoner or go eliminate these enemies, but they'll be set up in a way that makes it more interesting and makes it feel less like busy work and more like you're actually, you have a challenge in front of you. And I honestly feel like either they could have just taken out the middle ones where it feels like repeat work, or they could have made those middle ones more interesting and better placed. But yeah, as it stands now, it's like, man, some of those side ops definitely feel gratuitous.
I guess you could use that to go into the fact that maybe things weren't fully completed towards the end there.
Yeah, not a fan. I guess actually I've been talking a bit. You want to go into that and your thoughts, and then I can respond.
About the unfinished bit.
Yeah, or like I guess the entire second half. Um,
Okay. So without getting too much into spoilers, the second half of Metal Gear Solid 5, there's a lot of repeating missions that are just like repeats of older missions, and the main missions that are there, they're good, but they feel kind of like they were just placed at random, almost like the game wasn't fully finished.
yeah, pretty much. It's I, God, I don't want to be
It,
I don't want to be the chode that does this. It feels like it's a lot like Dark Souls. Take a
oh
shot.
God.
No, it honestly feels like
Dark
there's a
Souls and Metal Gear.
oh god damn it. No, I hate being that guy that compares whatever to Dark Souls, but like it's the only other thing I can think of right now for this
It's like
exact comparison where it's like there's a bit towards the end game where it's like, wow, you guys either ran out of time, money, or you just stopped giving a fuck because damn, there's a noticeable decrease in quality. Um,
yeah.
the final mission being cut, I think, hurts a lot because as it stands now, there's a plot thread that is just unresolved in the main game, and it feels really weird.
It honestly though, I question whether it was even going to be the final mission, and it wasn't just because there's evidence of like a chapter 3 on the game disc, and I
Yeah,
wonder if they didn't originally plan for there being a lot more to that game, and things maybe happened with Kojima, and they maybe ran out of time or money, and they were just let's just put together what we can.
I can't wait 10 years from now where some asshole writes a book on exactly what happened with this production because it seems like quite the I don't even know what to call it. Quite the event in the history of video games cuz like we're hearing shit about how this game spent about 80 million dollars to make and looking at the final product it's like, yeah, I can see that, but also like holy shit, where did some of that money go? Because like as much as this is an 80 million dollar video game or whatever, I still can't believe that they spent that much money and they couldn't finish the last part of it. You know, like
Yeah, I mean,
how does
honestly,
that happen?
it sounds like there's more story there than in the actual game.
Yeah, a little
Oh,
bit.
jokes.
Um,
I did actually, in regards to the story, there was one thing I wanted to say that I was thinking about the other day because I've been hard on the story a lot, because it does feel kind of incomplete and it does feel the story's not as good. I mean, the story's good, but it's not as present and it's not as strong as some of the past games.
yeah,
But there is still a lot of good stuff in the story, and I honestly think one of my biggest problems was the fact that I watched all of the trailers for it so many times, and the trailers kind of show you everything.
the trailers are kind of, I want to say, half the story, which is
Like,
ridiculous.
because like there's stuff in the trailers that I was waiting for the whole game, and it's like, oh, that's from like the end. Okay.
Yeah, like that bug, like playing the final mission. There's a part where it's like that was in the trailer. I can't fucking believe you put that in the trailer. Um,
Honestly, even like when you beat chapter 1 and you get like the preview for chapter 2, it's like, oh, that's all of chapter 2 that they just showed me. Like they just showed me
yeah,
most for chapter 2. Like I felt like I knew what was going to happen before it happened, and that probably dampened my feelings on the story a bit as well, in addition to the other problems it has.
yeah. I know we said we didn't want to get too much into spoilers. How do you feel about the ending?
Honestly, I kind of liked it. I thought it was fine.
I liked it a lot too. Just talking about the reaction, I feel like is going to be spoilery, so I don't want to say much. But I feel like as time goes on, I feel like people will like it more. Um,
Yeah,
I had a nice warm and fuzzy reaction to it, and I think that I don't think it works within the context of the story alone, but as the ending to Metal Gear itself, like as a whole giant series, I feel like it works very well.
yeah, I felt like it bookended the series in the best way a prequel could.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's kind of how I felt about it too. And like if you want to be fair, like looking really hardcore detailed at it and like analyzing it, it's like, yeah, that doesn't work at all, but like you can say that a lot about different things in Metal Gear,
I
so
mean, when you go into Metal Gear, I honestly like I've got major complaints with the story, but some of the people that complain about it's like, what were you expecting? Like
yeah.
this series has never been like top-notch, groundbreaking storytelling. It's always been goofy and don't think too hard about it, just enjoy it.
Yeah,
I mean, there's deep stuff in there, but like there's so much in Metal Gear that you have to take like you just have to accept it, you know?
yeah. Like there's always gonna be the dumb Kojima isms that it's like, what okay, what the fuck was that about? Um
I mean, this is coming. I like. Oh man, I'm gonna go ahead and out myself. My favorite game in the series is Metal Gear Solid 2.
yeah.
So I like the stupid stuff. I like the plot twists. I like the convoluted crap. But
I need scissors.
yeah, I need Scissors 61.
Yeah.
Like you gotta accept that stuff. And if you go into a Metal Gear game expecting like the most tightly knitted storytelling possible with nothing that feels out of place or nothing you need to make a leap of logic with, and you're definitely gonna.
Game fucking starts with baby Psycho Mantis summoning a flaming whale for Christ's sake.
Yeah, it does.
um I guess the only thing I can really think about in the story is, man, I sure did not regret, or I sure did not feel ashamed of my words and deeds
Nope, no,
regarding.
no shame here.
Yeah, yeah, no, like, oh my God, you know what? Fuck, it's not even that big of a spoiler. The reason that Quiet doesn't wear any decent clothing is because she's a fucking plant, I guess. Oh my God, that was so stupid.
All I'm gonna ask is why didn't the end wear nothing then?
Yeah, I know, right? It's like it's basically just the end, but like, I guess she needs to put it all out there.
She can
Like,
have a super long leather glove though, because that looks good.
God, that was so stupid. Like, the
I love Quiet as a character, by the way. I
I,
actually really
I
like
do
Quiet.
too. She's my favorite character in the story. I feel like she has the most development out of anyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
She comes the closest to having an arc that anyone does in that story. I like her a lot. There's a few scenes where I'm like, oh my God, this outfit is kind of
It
undermining. um,
it's not even so much the outfit as the camera.
yeah, actually,
Like
no, I agree with you. The camera is like because honestly, okay, so like how I've always felt about the design is like more like passive eye rolling of like, oh my fucking god, that's so stupid. But like the camera definitely is not
Yeah.
helping in
I
any.
mean, when you're sitting in the plane, she just straight up like sticks her butt in your face.
Yeah, I remember seeing that and groaning because like if you want to have a character that dresses like that for dumb fan service and to make the 14-year-old boys playing the game get harder, whatever, sure, fine, whatever. That's stupid, and I think that's really dumb, and video games should be better than that, but like, whatever, it happens, that's how you sell your shit, whatever you want to say, blah blah blah, that's stupid. But like, when you do that, and also you have the camera just
Mm.
creeping on her, like, come on. Like, I didn't need that. Cause like also too, the one, there's the scene or whatever where uh, this isn't too much of a spoiler, but like there's the scene where her and Big Boss kind of play around in the rain or whatever. And it's like, oh, this is a really warm and fuzzy, like touching scene, except for the fact that like it's total fan service. But
Yeah. Like
um,
it was actually one of the weirdest scenes because I totally felt like the emotions they were going for, and then also she's just like naked
yeah,
laying.
I know it's like, oh,
It's like,
okay,
this is awkward.
yeah, like it didn't ruin the game or her character or anything for me. And like I said before, like I'm less pissed off about it and more like slightly annoyed because it's like, okay, did we really need to go with that? But like,
I
yeah,
mean,
that was
it
dumb.
it's really stupid, but it's one of those things that like I'll just laugh about it and let it be. I
It
don't.
pretty much. Like yeah, I feel like I wasn't expecting too much from the story. Give it okay. I'm at a weird place with Metal Gear where like I've kind of just come to accept that Kojima as a writer doesn't give a fuck about overarching continuity. He will make whatever sacrifice he needs to the overall canon to make the current thing in the now like work as an effective story. Like he's not afraid to make sacrifices regarding his previous works to make the thing he's making now cooler. So I never really expected that this final game in this almost 30-year-old thing would be perfect story-wise. But even then, like, there's a few, like, I did not really expect it to be this bare bones in terms of
Yeah.
story.
It honestly like it's disappointing.
Yeah,
Metal Gear is known for its story.
yeah, like, it's bizarre because, like, video games are an interesting medium, I will say, because you can have a game that's good gameplay wise and really fun gameplay wise. And I think gameplay wise, I think everyone can agree Phantom Pain plays phenomenally. Like there's annoyances and pet peeves and all that, but like as an actual game to play, it's a lot of fun. Um and then there's like the story side of things where does the video game tell a good story and all that sort of thing. And I feel like as long as your game does one fine, I'm okay with the other being disappointing. Um so like I am disappointed with Phantom Pain's story, I guess, but like the gameplay is fun enough that like it's up there for me in terms of Metal Gear. It's not my favorite, it's not even my second favorite, but like I don't know, I liked it a lot, but like yeah, that story was not
I mean,
it's probably the weakest story wise.
well, yeah, honestly, it's weird though because when it's good, it's really good.
When it gets good, I like it a lot more than fours.
It just gets really good so rarely, and most of the time it's
Uh,
just like, Snake, go do a thing. You did a thing.
yeah, it's really really bizarre. Also, a lot of the main missions aren't even really plot related.
No, they're not. It's literally. I mean, I guess you could argue that that's part of like building up the base and whatnot. That like the main story is mostly just you're building up this base.
Yeah.
That's not all that exciting.
Yeah.
Like as a game mechanic, it's exciting. It's not exciting as a story that you're building up a base.
Yeah, or boss, this military group was actually a front for Cypher, and then they don't do anything with it. It was just like, oh, that's a detail. Like
That is a detail,
like
yes.
it doesn't really affect much, but it's just kind of there, and I take it in. But um,
Also, parasites are the new nanomachines.
pretty much. No, like yeah, the story was bizarre in that I do agree. I liked the good parts of it a lot. Like there's a few emotional moments in there. I'm like, wow, I'm gonna always remember how that made me feel. Like there's some really strong things in there, but like overall, it's not great. Do I do like Kiefer Sutherland. I think he does a good Snake. Man, I wish he talked more. um,
Yeah, I wish he talked more. I mean, again, I don't want to get into too many spoilers, but there are some scenes where I was literally like, okay, the fact that he is not talking so much is like starting to negatively affect how much I'm enjoying this scene.
yeah, and that was I mean, I don't have a problem with his performance at all, but I do kind of wish we got Hater just because like it's the last game. Yeah, you might as well have him do the whole
Yeah.
thing all the you know what I mean? Like I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure people are gonna like say, "Oh, just David Hayter fanboy," but I mean, he is Snake to me. Like,
Same.
it's been him this whole time. The Japanese voice actor was the same as the Japanese voice this whole time. I would have liked to have him.
Also, like not only that, but like I know people are saying that like well, Hater's performance in Peace Walker was less than stellar, and I can definitely I can agree with that, but like I don't know. I feel like they're inseparable. Like at this point, where it's like you might as well just go for whenever you have Solid Snake or Big Boss or whatever. Just put Hater in the role. You know, it's not too much to ask. But oh well, I can live without it. But it was kind of like a there's a few scenes or whatever. It's like man, I miss David Hater.
Definitely, I felt the lack of Hater.
We truly felt the phantom pain of
Yes.
not having Hater. Um,
Oh man.
no, the like I guess it's really weird because like I think overall people really do like Phantom Pain. I know a few Metal Gear fans that are like really disappointed in it and like they're like this game sucks and all that. I do think Phantom Pain is a great I'd go so far to say it's a phenomenal game. It's probably one of the better AAA games I've played in recent memory. But like it's one of those weird like wow, this is a really disappointing 9 out of 10 or whatever, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, no, I definitely understand because mechanically it's fantastic and it's so fun to play, but you can't sit there and be like, but it's not what it could have been, you know?
yeah, and like I do think I had so much fun just playing through it, even towards the end there, where like if I had to review it and give it a number score, I would probably give it a 10 out of 10. I would definitely see why people would go lower than I would. Um, I also, geez, how do I explain this? I do. I had this feeling playing through the game where I'm like, wow, I'm not liking this as much as I liked three, but this is probably my second favorite Metal Gear. And then got into that chapter two, and I'm like, you know what? Think I like two a little bit more than this one as well. So, like, it kind of went downward in my Metal Gear favorability list.
It's like seated nicely in the middle for me. Of like, I like it more than Peace Walker and Portable Ops, and probably even more than four. But I always will like one, two, and three better than it.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's definitely I really, really wish that at some point we learn what this game could have been because, like, given more time and I guess more focus on the story, I'd be really curious to see if the story would have went places or at least been more than what we got and maybe make a bit more sense. Um,
I mean, there's so many weird things that's like we know there was a missing, at least one missing chapter. We know that there was potentially more missions in chapter two potentially,
yeah.
and then there's stuff like the GameStop website saying that you went to like America and Russia.
Wait, what? I never knew about that.
Oh yeah, like the description for the game on GameStop was like travel to several wide open areas, including the Soviet Union and America, and like that never happens.
That's weird.
I think that was like a big argument people had in like I don't know if you ever saw like that big conspiracy theory people had that we were going to get like a major update
Oh my
on
God, yeah, that was
September
the most.
11th.
That was the
That
sad.
was so dumb.
That was so sad. There was that, and then also on the Metal Gear subreddit, I think it was. There's this guy that was like, "Oh, the game was disappointing on purpose. It's the phantom pain is our disappointment," and it's like, wow, that is the most like I don't
Man,
know what mental gymnastics you needed to go through to come to
leaves you speechless.
like pretty much like I don't know if that's how you cope with your disappointment of a video game that it was some conspiracy that it was bad on purpose, but like I I don't know. People go nuts with like Kojima and Suda51 and swear like
Yeah.
whenever you have like wacky game creators like that, people always go a little far with it. But yeah, I don't know. I always thought because like people were like, oh yeah, September 11th. There's all these hints that we found that aren't actually there, but we're just misinterpreting them. That like there's gonna be a major update, and it was all just a conspiracy thing. And it's like no, sometimes when things are bad, they're bad because they're bad. Like I don't
Sometimes
know.
people just ran out of money and there's a slightly unfinished game.
Yeah. Sometimes $80 million isn't enough, I guess. Holy shit. I can't believe that. That is so ridiculous. I need to know the full story behind that at some point before I die because holy shit, that's ridiculous.
I want to know. I want like a 3 hour long documentary with like interviews of everyone.
Yeah. Man, we went on about Phantom Pain for a while, but I guess the last thing I want to close out with I don't know if you have anything else you want to talk about regarding the game, actually.
No, I mean I just it's a good game, slightly disappointing, but I enjoyed my time with it.
It's my second favorite game I played this year, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. I was actually playing Metal Gear Online earlier today, but I think I might save my thoughts on that until I get more invested into it, and maybe I'll talk about that in episode 2. No, it's definitely, I think, one of the better games I've played in years. Uh, that said, there are some major glaring flaws that I really wish would have been ironed out before the game came out, but oh well, what can you do? Sometimes games have flaws. Nothing's perfect. But I guess given recent Konami news and discussion and all that, uh are you just gonna do what I'm doing and kind of tap out and say Metal Gear's done now? But are you gonna buy into whatever Metal Gear games they might make after this, or do you think it's kind of gonna end with when Kojima left it off?
I'm pretty much unless it's most likely I'm going to be done with it because at least like Metal Gear Solid, that's Kojima's story to me.
Same.
If they do go to platinum for Metal Gear Rising 2, I'll pick that up.
That's kind of how I'm feeling too. Like Rising is the only thing you can make me go back to, and even then, if it's not made by Platinum, like I don't care. Um, yeah, unless like they make a new Metal Gear Solid without Kojima, and it turns out to be like a masterpiece, or it turns out to be really good. Like I can't see myself caring because like you said, I think when I think of Metal Gear, I think of Kojima, and I think that's true for a lot of people. And like even Portable Ops is notorious for not like it's kind of the one that is canon, quote unquote, but involved Kojima the least. And definitely that game is probably the least liked in terms of all of the Metal Gear games.
It's on the bottom of my list.
It's on the bottom of my list too, man. I did not like that game at all. Um,
I like Metal Gear 1 more than that game.
gee, you know what? I probably do too. Actually, I can see that. I think it's definitely a better game in a lot of ways, considering like time period and all that. Um, yeah, I guess it's kind of I don't know. I'm not really too sad about it because to be honest, I think Metal Gear's been a thing that a lot of people have wanted to end for a while now, and
Yeah, it's over.
it's yeah. I also I like it when things are given closure. Nothing bothers me more when there's a thing I like and it's just kind of like the status of its being alive or dead or whatever is just kind of left in the air or like it's never given proper closure. And Phantom Pain definitely closes things off. If this was the last Metal Gear game, I think people would be happy with this conclusion to it. So that's all I really care about, and I'm fine with that. So
I
yeah,
mean, even in terms of like, I know a lot of people have problems with it, but Metal Gear Solid 4 like ended this story.
yeah,
Like it's been over for a while, and Phantom Pain and all the other prequels, they just like filled in the gaps that like it added a lot more depth to the story overall, but like
yeah.
there's nowhere to go now unless they want to go somewhere ridiculous with it.
Unless they
So
really want to cheese it out, yeah.
yeah.
There's um no, I definitely agree. I think I shit on 4 a lot, but I do think it did a nice job of wrapping up everything that needed to be wrapped up. Like, it didn't do it in the most polished or refined of ways, but it was an ending, all right, and I can appreciate it for that. So
That's the best review. Metal Gear Solid 4, it wasn't ending.
it was that's an ending, all right. Moving along from Phantom Pain, we have one more thing really to talk about. A new exciting game got announced that I think a lot of people have been curious about my thoughts on, and I don't know. Far Cry Primal's looking pretty good.
Oh man, I can't wait.
A caveman, but Far Cry. This is excellent. No, yeah, there is an announcement about a new Shin Megami Tensei game that is looking pretty cool. So there's a dump. Well, actually, first off, I want to complain about the way this game was announced. So Atlas updated Shin Megami Tensei 4's page, which at first I didn't really give much thought because earlier in the day they had uploaded a trailer, and I don't read Japanese, so like I clicked on it and I'm like, oh my god, what's this SMT4 video on Atlas's channel? And it was just an announcement for the like greatest hits reprint in Japan for SMT4, and I was like, oh, that's disappointing. So then they announced this social media campaign thing that basically said like we need 15,000 tweets, and then we'll announce whatever we want to announce. And first of all, I want to say, fuck that marketing campaign. That's terrible. Second of all, they very clearly lied about those numbers because if you looked at the Twitter feed, people, like, we were going at a rate of probably 5 tweets a second. Um, like,
I
people
remember
in
hitting
Japan were
live
going
and it was
nuts.
just yeah, I remember hitting live and it was just like consistently updating.
There was no way we did not reach 15,000 tweets within an hour. But then they're like, oh, there's been 200 tweets in the last 30 minutes, and it's like, yeah, that's guys are full of bullshit. So yeah, aside from them totally fudging the tweet numbers, uh, yeah, I don't like that style of release. But when eventually it did get revealed, is Shin Megami Tensei IV Final, which is what looks like a direct sequel to SMT4. Story is a little weird, where it almost seems more like an alternate continuity. Did you read up on that at all, or?
I did. I definitely think they're going for like something happened before the ending of Shin Megami Tensei 4 that creates a new story.
Exactly. That's kind of how it looks. And they make reference to Flynn is around and has done things. Like there's a Famitsu thing where they kind of went into some of the characters, and they talk about Medusa because Medusa's resurrected or whatever, and she's back around to contribute to the story. But like they said something like, "Oh, she was killed by a certain someone," or so. Like Flynn is obviously around and doing stuff, but for those who aren't familiar, SMT4 Finals premise seems to be that at the end of SMT4, when Lucifer and Merkaba are like, or Merkaba, however the fuck you're supposed to pronounce it, when they're fighting and like the law and chaos war starts to happen towards the end there, a third faction of demons led by Krishna comes out of nowhere and starts to get involved with things, and like a total war breaks out that kind of makes everything go to shit. And that's kind of the backdrop for what SMT4 Final is about, which is pretty interesting. I think that is a very unique way of going about uh, not wanting to make one of the endings of the original game canon, but still having a sequel. um,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they kind of toyed around with ideas like that in the past with like Record Breaker's second arc being like to an ending that didn't happen.
yeah,
So it's definitely not like unprecedented, but I like the fact that it's just like, no, this is like, hey, something crazy happened, and it's creating a whole new story.
yeah. I'm so far I'm pretty excited. Actually, I shouldn't even say pretty excited. I am so hyped. Like,
I am pretty hyped.
this is actually right now my number one most anticipated game for 2016. I
I mean,
am,
it's a new mainline Shin Megami Tensei.
yeah, honestly, I am still in disbelief that we are getting a new mainline game before we're getting Persona 5.
Yeah, I mean,
How?
who knows how like the American release dates are gonna turn out, but at least in Japan, it's releasing first. Yeah.
I can't believe it. If you had told me that we were going to get another mainline before Persona 5 came out, like a few months back, I would have laughed at you and called you insane. I can't believe it. It makes me so happy. I'm warm and fuzzy inside. Um, no, I was just so thrilled with the announcement because Atlas has a history of campaigns like this or like online teasers that turn out to be nothing. Uh, and I think this was the best possible thing any of us could have gotten excited for, which is really nice.
I thought for sure it was gonna be like a concert or something.
I thought it was going to be a stage play. Unironically, I thought it was going to be a stage play because like Persona has those going on, and I was like, they're going to make some dumb SMT4 thing. And then toward actually like I I guess how this went for me is like because of how the time zones worked or whatever. Like this was super early in the morning when the countdown stuff was happening. It's like, well, I need to go to school, so I need to sleep at some point. I woke up and I'm like, the first thing I did was check my phone. It's like, what got announced? And the countdown thing wasn't over yet, and I'm like, oh my god, that's ridiculous. And then like right after I got out of my first class, I checked, and sure enough, like just a few minutes earlier, SMT IV Final announced or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? It does make sense that if they have this big dumb campaign thing, that it would be at least something. So
Yeah. Oh man, like I was a little bit annoyed during the way the campaign was going, but when I saw what was announced, like I didn't even care anymore. I was just so excited.
yeah, and like it seems one thing that got me really excited too is it really seems like they are trying to address common fan criticisms of the first SMT4, which I liked SMT4 a lot. It's probably one of my in terms of Megaton games, it's probably like up there in terms of my favorites. I spent probably 120 hours in it, I think, was my final playtime. Like I love that game to death. When I think of 2013, I think of two games. Think of SMT4, think of Metal Gear Rising. Um, so I loved that game, but I do admit there was some gameplay problems there that were not great, and the fact that they're aware of that makes me really excited because I trust Atlas enough to fix what needs to be fixed and make an even better playing game.
I mean, personally for me, I only really have two major complaints that I hope they address. The first one didn't bother me too much, but I know bothered a lot of people. At least put like labels on the map as to like
Yeah,
what areas are where, just so, like we're not all from Japan, we don't know.
yeah.
And two, just there were way too many bosses that had weaknesses. I feel like the gameplay, like the difficulty, could be better balanced by making more challenging bosses that can't just be spammed with weaknesses.
I was talking with a few friends about this recently, and actually about the bosses and also just the like difficulty curve. Like because one thing I will say, SMT4 easily the best-selling mainline game, and I think there's a reason for that. It's definitely accessible. It is really hard as hell at first. That tutorial is stupidly hard, like, and honestly probably frustrating for a lot of people. But like definitely the most accessible mainline entry, and I think there's a reason the sales reflected that. But I do think that for those of us coming into SMT4 that were previous mainline fans, the fact that the hardest difficulty is locked until you beat the game once was not great. Um, and I feel like the problem with SMT4 was that there's if you play a mainline game and you play it well, there's always a point about halfway through where you just start to kind of wipe the floor with every random encounter, and your team is so good that you don't need to worry too much unless you get like back attacked or something. Problem with SMT4 was it felt like that kind of started to happen around the 20% mark,
I can agree with that definitely.
and like it would have been nicer if there was a bit more of a challenge until a little bit later on, because like there's a point in the game where it's like I stopped caring about any sort of strategy other than buff my shit up, physical attack, win the fight. And I do agree where a lot of bosses having weaknesses definitely did not help that. I also feel this is actually something a friend of mine pointed out. compared to Nocturne and Strange Journey, a lot of SMT4 boss fights feel very traditional, and a lot of them don't really have gimmicks, or like they're not really like for Nocturne and Strange Journey, there are some fights where because of the skills they use or how they work, it's almost more like a puzzle, and you kind of need to work your strategy around that boss and however their moveset works. With SMT4, it kind of just feels like you can roll with one party, and you don't really need to strategize or change it up too much based off of what you're fighting.
Pretty much. I mean, it's a shame too because when you start getting into some of the like optional stuff and even some of the DLC, you can see that they're definitely capable of making boss fights like that.
Those
Like
Archangel fights are fun as fuck.
the Archangel fights are great. The Fiend fights are incredible. I was Fiend hunting. I'm still. I don't have all the Fiends. I'm still Fiend hunting. But like White Rider and Trumpeter are really good fights.
I spent 3 hours trying to find Matador in that game, and I couldn't. I'm like, you know what, fuck this. So I've never.
It took me 2 days to find White Rider. So
Oh
yeah.
my god. Yeah,
It's a pain.
I'm also I'm worried of like finally finding one, and then like I just like, oh, my team wasn't good enough, and then I die or something. So I was like, I'm gonna pass on that.
That happened to me when I first fought Trumpeter. I found him. He destroyed me. I had to leave and get better and come back.
Yeah. I I hope that they do address that.
I
Well,
mean, they've said that they will be addressing fan complaints, so that's got to be up there
yeah,
on.
I think because it's always weird when you read about what Japan has problems with versus what Western audiences complain about. And like I know for a lot of games, not necessarily RPGs, so I kind of want to be careful with how I'm wording this. It generally seems like a lot of how do it seems like a lot of Japanese video game players tend to like for a lot of games tend to appreciate easier games and can have like a better time getting into easier games. Like I think about all of the different games where as of late where like our normal mode was Japanese hard mode or stuff like that where like they'll change around the difficulty and like Japan generally it seems like a lot of times for like the games that they want to market to a mass audience such as like I think even Metal Gear Solid 4 had this. They'll definitely have like easier game modes for the Japanese players than with the Western version. So I'm almost wondering if like I am generally curious to see how Japan felt about SMT4 being easier than Nocturne and Strange Journey.
Yeah, that's something I didn't really think about. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, even if the game turns out to be easier too, I'm not gonna care probably because like I already had fun with SMT4 as is, so it's like hey, it's like SMT4 but slightly better. That's good enough for me. But
I
um,
mean, I don't know if anyone uh, watched the episode of Cathedral Shadows that I was a guest on, but
I sure didn't. Oh.
yeah, no, it was garbage. Because of
You're
me.
not allowed to say that title.
No, it's
Remember,
because of me.
it's
Sorry.
the Voldemort of podcasts.
Yeah, I'm
Anyways,
sorry. The podcast that must not be named.
yeah.
Uh, but my SMT4 is probably my second favorite of all of Megaton, and it might even be tied to first with Nocturne. The gameplay has a lot of faults, but the story and setting are probably my favorite of the franchise. So
I
to
definitely
be
love
able
Tokyo.
to, yeah, to be able to revisit the setting of SMT4, like even if this game does have problems, which all games have problems, even if it doesn't fix all of my complaints from SMT4, I'm still gonna love it.
They made a statement about that too, where they're like, "We definitely think there's more potential out of SMT4's world," and I'm like, "Yeah, there is."
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I'm really excited to see where they go with it. Especially too, they're making a big deal out of the fact that your character this time is not from Mikado. You are from the shitty Tokyo. You you're stuck on the streets, and every day is a struggle to live. And even actually, your main character dies just because the way they word it too is really funny because it honestly seems like our character's origin story is that he got back attack mudoed, and, and he just dies at the start of the game, and then a demon gives him a second chance at life. And one thing that actually I do want to say is that if this was any other company, I'd probably be a little worried, but because it's Atlas, I'm fine with it. The main character has like demonic tattoos that are very, very clearly trying to be a callback or at least some sort of like they're kind of trying to tug at your heartstrings for your love of the demi-fiend, I guess. Like they're trying to evoke that demi-fiend feel. And if this was any other company, I'd be like, wow, that's a cheap way to get people excited. But because it's Atlas, I'm like, I legitimately feel like they're trying to make this more like Nocturne, and they're sincere in that, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Honestly, that brings up another question that I was gonna ask you. So they introduced the idea of what was it, Krishna? Is
yeah,
that how you pronounce it?
yeah.
Sort of being like this third faction. Do you think that Krishna is gonna like be a deity for the neutral route, or are they gonna have more than just the standard three endings? Like maybe go for a nocturne type situation.
I thought about this, and there are two thoughts I have on this, and I kind of want one over the other, but the one I want over the other is the more unrealistic one, so I'm kind of sad. Um, my first thought was that they want to introduce a third alignment because let's be honest, Law and Chaos been doing that for quite a few years now. We can shake up that formula a bit, I feel. And like Devil Survivor 1 and 2 both did that. Digital Devil Saga kind of had their own like they kind of messed around with it in their own narrative. But as of like mainline has always been mainline in terms of law versus chaos. Other than like Nocturne does this weird fucking thing where like every character has their own ideology that kind of have some elements of law versus chaos in each of their own thing, but it's not exactly law versus chaos. So what my original thought was they want to make a third faction that's its own new alignment that will shake things up. But the more I thought about it, the more I kind of realized I feel like in the same way that the white in SMT IV Vanilla was like the bad version of neutral, I have a real iffy feeling on my original idea, and I honestly feel like like Krishna and friends are going to be the bad version of neutral in this one.
I hope that's not the case.
I hope that's not the case too. I have a feeling that's the most realistic though, and that makes me sad. But oh well, it should be still interesting. But if they wanted to shake up the formula a bit, that'd be cool. My only thing is like I don't know if they'd want to shake up the formula in a game that's like a direct sequel to an already existing one. Like I don't know, but
Honestly, I think that's the best time to shake up the formula because you have that base of the first one that did the traditional thing, and now
yeah,
the
that's
sequel
true.
can do weird things with it.
That is true actually. And I do think SMT IV Final is a very interesting I was thinking about the other day. I've always said SMT4 is kind of the Final Fantasy 9 of Mega 10. Yeah, fucking I keep saying blank is the blank of blank today. Jesus Christ.
It's the Dark
Um
Souls of Final Fantasy VII.
it's basically the Super Mario Brothers All Stars of Resident Evil. But no, I I was thinking about the other day and it's like what if Final Fantasy 9 2 was a thing, you know? Like that's kind of what SMT4F is. Like it's
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
and also too, one thing that I always appreciated about SMT4 from a story level that I don't think a lot of people got just because of the fact that it is more so a celebration of the series and a newcomer would not really pick up on this easily. SMT4's story is written as though it was a sequel to a game that never existed. And by that I mean, if you look at the backstory of SMT4's world, uh, and for those of you who are curious, the part of SMT4 where you go to alternate dimensions and alternate timelines of what could have happened in the past of SMT4's world kind of explores this. SMT4 takes place like after the neutral ending of an SMT game that never existed, if that makes sense. Like it's kind of like there was a law versus chaos war, and then the hero went neutral, and then SMT4 takes place after that. And then you get to see what the world would look like had they have gone law or chaos for a little bit before you go back to your own world. So in a way, it's almost like SMT4 Final is this new uncharted territory where it's like this third step in an SMT story, which we've never really gotten before. So I'm curious to see how they play with that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there's a lot of interesting things they can do with it, and we don't really know too much about it, but just from what we do know, it really feels like they're experimenting with the story. Just the idea of like potentially a new faction, or even if it's just like a new way of doing the neutral route, like I have no idea where they're going, and I'm so excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, I do have some level of excitement for, like, they went out and said the theme of this game is God slaying, and it's like, oh wow, wow, whew, that's a, that's a big, big word for your theme, and also like the demon that revives the main character even says that he's really only reviving the main character to use him as a vessel for killing gods, which I think is very interesting considering SMT's history with that. We do have a screen capture of Lucifer name dropping Yahweh, which we have not gotten, I don't think, since SMT 2, which is like, I want to say that came out in like 95.
He might have been name dropped in Strange Journey. I haven't played all of Strange Journey.
Actually, yeah, I think you might be. He might have been.
I think he was name dropped there. But that is definitely huge to have like, okay, this is a screenshot of Lucifer name dropping Yahweh. That is big.
I really hope we get to see him again, and I really hope that he stays a dumb yellow head. Best.
Um yeah, honestly, I have no idea if we're gonna see him. I'm like, I want to see him, but my gut says we're not going to.
It's been so long since we last saw Yahweh directly participate in the story. Uh, Nocturne, he's kind of there, but he's talking through Kagutsuchi and Metatron. Strange Journey, he's kind of talking through Metatron again, and the Archangels and Mastema kind of have their own interpretations of his will. SMT IV, he really, once again, Mastema and Ancient of Days and the Archangels kind of have, like, it's implied that they have connections to Yahweh, but he doesn't directly impact the plot at all. And I kind of want to see him get directly involved again because it's been so long since we've had that.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be interesting to see how the audience that never played like SMT2 reacts to that, because there's definitely some interesting reactions that can come about that maybe people don't know about this
Yeah,
series.
yeah. And those people do exist.
Yeah, it's easy to forget because we are in like a section of the fan base that is so like we know everything.
Stupidly obsessive, yeah.
We play it all, but there's a lot of people that just picked up like Nocturne, Persona 4, Persona 3,
Yeah.
SMT4. That's what they know.
Yeah, and like also too, it's as of Nocturne, they've been so light on the whole God is an asshole thing that like it is very clear that they're talking about the Judeo-Christian God, but like we've never gone the full step of actually killing him. Like, there's a lot of talk about the main character going to wage a war against God. We've never actually had a main character in a while that has directly fought God, and like they've directly called out God as evil. Especially too, considering like a lot of JRPGs kind of do a similar thing where it's like, oh, God is evil and all that, but you don't actually really directly fight like Judeo-Christian Abrahamic God, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I think definitely there's a lot of people that get invested in the series and they don't really know how far the franchise will go with that in some games. So,
It's exciting to see. I almost like. I really hope it goes the full distance, just so I can see people be both excited about it and angry about it.
yeah, I actually agree with that. I do think that in the case of like how SMT handles things and its thoughts on Western religion, I do think that they do have some very valid themes and points that they bring up that I think I would actually appreciate being like told in video game form. Because like, to be honest, like whenever like a JRPG has a really solid story with like elements that we can take and appreciate as like a major story theme in like a real world context, I love that stuff. Like I wish we had more JRPGs that were smarter and more into like God, I don't want to say intellectual because like I feel like I'm overselling it, but like I like games that make you think about stuff. And if anything, I think SMT makes people think about stuff.
It's
Um,
definitely. I mean, it's. I mean, SMT is my favorite series, so maybe I'm a little biased, but I definitely feel like it in general just goes for a deeper, more like it's hard to word it, but there's more meat on the bones with SMT than maybe your generic fantasy RPG.
yeah, and God, going into SMT2, there's a lot of like story scenes in that game where you can kind of see the pent up frustration of Eastern versus Western communications and influence, and like it feels really powerful because it's like I can feel the frustration that some of these people writing the story had with I guess the West's impact on their culture. And like it's stuff like that that I love in media, where it's like I can feel that came from someone's heart, and I can see where they're coming from, and like it makes me better understand and think about things in the real world, and stuff like that I love in any story. So
Yeah. I don't have much to add to that sentiment. It's just I love this series for what it does, and it has been a little bit light on some of the heavier themes in terms of religious aspects, even though it's always still dealt with it.
yeah,
It's just they haven't gone like full on. Here's like the big thing. So
yeah,
I'd like to see them do it again.
yeah.
Even though, again, my gut says they're probably gonna. I don't think we're gonna see him. I think he's gonna be mentioned a lot more in the story, but
They
I
might
don't.
not go the full
They
thing.
might not go the full way, but I love to be proven wrong in that respect.
Yeah, yeah. God, if this is the one where a big controversy erupts, that'd be good fun too. But
Yeah,
um,
I think we've all like everyone that has played the series has just been waiting for years for it to finally like come out what actually goes on. Like, oh, this is a series where you could totally side with Lucifer and kill God.
yeah,
We've all been
like
waiting for that pin to drop. Getting a bit lighter on the subject though, in regards to Lucifer, what do you think about the new redesigns of those demons?
I like it a lot. Or I like him a lot. I guess I should say. I actually, you know, what, I will say I like all the redesigns a lot so far. Like, there's still no, like, there's still like the core designs have been touched up to look better, and I do think they look a lot better. It doesn't solve some of the problems with like Lucifer still looks like Squidward, but like
Yeah,
he looks like a
I
lot
mean,
better Squidward.
he still looks silly. Um, I would still much rather prefer the classic Lucifer designs, either the blonde man in a suit or the big blue demon.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like with Lucifer and Merkaba and even Medusa, they've definitely tried to make them look more, at least consistent with the Kaneko designs. So even if they're not as good, they at least feel like they come from the same game.
Yeah. I've been appreciating the touch up work they've been doing. I definitely think they want to make it look more uniform because like one thing I will say about SMT4's art style is like everything feels really thrown together and like
Yeah, I mean we've got designs from like
90s games.
yeah 90s games sitting alongside of brand new designs, and the artwork isn't the same.
Yeah, and it definitely you can tell that there's a lot of patchwork going into it, and I appreciate that they're touching that up, I guess. But yeah, I don't really have any more thoughts on SMT4 Final that I can think about. Like, I mean, I don't know, I'm just really excited for it. Like,
Yeah, I mean
new
we
mainline is
don't
new
know.
mainline.
Yeah, we don't know too much about it, but it's a new mainland Shin Megami Tensei. It's a direct sequel to SMT4, even though it probably won't be called SMT4 Final in America, but that's what we know it as for right now. So it just it's exciting.
Yeah, I'm really hyped for it. Like I said, number one anticipated game for me right now. No, they did say that like on October 11th they were going to stream the game and have a bit more info reveal on the gameplay and the story and stuff like that. And October 11th is my birthday, actually. We're recording this on the 10th. But I'm like, wow,
It's actually officially the 11th for me, so happy birthday.
thank you. No, but no, but I was like, wow, Atlas of Japan, thanks for the best birthday present ever. New mainline gameplay reveal. That's excellent.
You're a
Um,
big fan of the podcast that must not be named.
yeah, I guess so. No, so that was exciting for me, and I'm like, wow, it was the best birthday ever. And then I cried on the inside. No, um, yeah, no, I'm just really looking forward to it. It's there's a lot of potential here for just a great game. They've outright said they want this to be the best 3DS RPG, and I think I can see that happening.
It's probably going to be if it can, because right now my favorite 3DS RPG is SMT IV. So if it can beat that, then it will be.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
I mean, just man, 2016 is a great year to be a Megaton fan.
I don't got much else to say, but I will say that I want to thank you, Zach, for joining me on the first episode of We Are Finally podcast.
Uh,
Uh,
Thank you for having me, man.
yeah, no problem. All right, I do want to say one last thing is if you want to ask us a question, you can hit us up at wearefinallyemail@gmail.com. Once again, that is wearefinallyemail@gmail.com. You can go ahead and email us any questions and we'll answer it on the show. It doesn't even need to be about video games, can be about whatever nerd crap you want us to discuss or answer. And yeah, I thought we could get a nice little Q&A section at the end of the podcast going, just avoiding that this time because it's the first episode and we don't have any questions. So yeah, hope that everyone has a good night and I hope that you all enjoyed this first episode. Bye.
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 I don't know what the fuck we're doing anymore. Back in the day, and I decided to cut that close or cut that. God damn it, I fucked up already. Um, man, this is hard. I should just never podcast. Here, I just cut the recording and started a new one. Fuck it.
Alright, good, because I was holding in some laughs.
Um,
Can I be a piece of shit? Can I go grab another bottle of water?
go ahead, do it.
Alright, I'll be right
I need
back.
time to sit down and think about what I just did. So.